And welcome to this new meetup of the European Training Foundation, the ETF Club, teaching with artificial intelligence. We are an international community, so please feel you free to write your name and from where you are connecting in the chat. So use the chat because it's also important. It's our main tool to interact with you. Now depends on how many we are today, but the chat will remain the main tool as usual to address your question, your reflection, and observation, especially when hola,
¿Qué? No,
especially
no,
when
yo estoy en...
and some housekeeping rules, simple rules. So please mute your microphone. Mute your microphone if you are not talking or you're and turn off your camera if you don't want to be recorded because this event is going to be recorded. So let's start immediately with the agenda of the meeting. So if you, Roberto, can show the agenda, perfect. So I'm going now to introduce the agenda. The first item that we have is about what's new in the club. We would like we reflected together with you, with many of you, about how to make more relevant to your work in classroom as a teacher, as educator. So we have some news that, of course, again, use the chat to provide your feedback and comments in this respect. Then, after the quick recall on the iClub, we go into the topic. So today we selected as a topic to discuss is about AI pedagogy and the impact of using artificial intelligence in teaching and learning on students' learning, on their experience, on their outcomes as well. And here we have a great international expert. It's also a friend, let me say, but is a super international expert that I'm going to introduce properly in a few minutes. Then, of course, with Fabio Nascimbeni, my colleague Fabio from Turin, we are going to address some of the questions that we received in March at the last meetup from you on this topic, on students' learning and the impact that artificial intelligence can have. So this is something that we have a short appetizer from Chris as international expert on this topic, and then we will address your questions to the expert. And again, feel you free to add additional questions in the chat. It's a really good opportunity to speak with Cristobal today. Then, I don't know if you know about it, if you follow me on LinkedIn, but I am in Helsinki. Actually, I'm here since April in a resident research, and I was very lucky to meet Matti Seise. Matti Seise is a teacher at the Helsinki Business College, and he's going to present today his practices with the special students. I was lucky to assist and observe some of his lessons, and I tell you that there are many good tips and tricks, that could be really interesting and applicable, important to be successful in the application of AI in your classroom. So it's a really welcome also Matti Caesar, and I'm going to introduce properly later on. Then we have an interactive session where we reflect. I would really appreciate if you give us some feedback and hints to Matti on his work on how to improve it, for example, or also to see how you could apply these solutions in your classroom. Last but not least, as usual, we will conclude with some homework to keep connected and keep working together. So let's go to the next slide to introduce briefly what is new in the club in 2025. So I don't see the slide. It's just me or... Okay. So let's go to show where we are with the club. So, okay. So this is just to recall that the club was launched in 2024. We closed in March, let's say, the first season of the club, where we produce, as a result of this 6 months, a guide on teaching for teachers on the use of AI in classroom. Let me recall that this is a very international community. We have participants from more than 50 countries. In total, we are more than 400 members. We're focusing on generative third-party tools. And now we started that almost was just a ChatGPT available. Now we have plenty of these tools. So it's also important to decide which tool to use. Okay. And in this respect, Matti made some important customization of the standard tool in order to effectively implement in the classroom. And of course, we aim to inspire you, teachers, providing good practices, bringing here as guest speaker, international expert. Let me say that for this year, sorry, for this year, we have 2 important news. One is about the format of the meetup. We try to limit the presentation, okay? And we try to bring in each meetup a good practice, a practice. Let's call it practice. Is your practice. So we are going to, we call, let's say, your contribution to share your practices. We have already catalog, and so we invite you to continue. And perhaps, Roberto, we can share the link in the chat to submit in a practice. And as a result of this, you might be selected as a speaker in the next meetup, or we might invite you in one international meeting where ETF is joining and bringing the club as an example of a bottom-up activity to promote AI in education. But now let me start introducing the first expert of today. So we can close the slide at this stage. So I'm very glad to introduce as the international expert with us today, Cristobal Cobo. Cristobal is a senior education and technology expert at international organization. And his work involves supporting countries in integrating innovative and impactful technological solutions into their education system. Cristobal has published already 4 books and over 80 academic articles. Cristobal also participated in 4 TEDx events. So it's a really, I would say, internationally a reference. And I strongly recommend you to follow Cristobal on LinkedIn. You can easily find him, and almost every day is publishing very interesting information about the use of AI in education, I would say with a very balanced approach. So, Cristobal, I'm very glad to have you here at the club, and I would pass you the floor for a little appetizer, I understood, about the impact of AI on learning. So the floor is yours, Cristobal.
Thank you so much, Alessandro, for the invitation, and thank you for the space. It's such a privilege to share one of the most scarce resources, which is your time. And while I was listening and watching on the faces, in addition to remember the pandemic, I also thought, why on earth are we getting together? If we are in different parts of the world, we have so many things to do. If we could be talking with our chatbots, why on earth are we putting the chatbot aside and getting together? And I believe the reason, and we will explore it now, is because we really like to connect with others. We really, if we are in the world of education, we understand the value of being with others, the value of learning with others, the value of connecting, and the value of understanding diversity, which is one of the key important aspects here, which is navigate different ways of understanding reality. So let me try to honor your time to share some ingredients. I'm going to go very fast because if you want to see it in slow fashion, you will have the video to watch it later. So we have different ways of understanding how this transformative technology is impacting education. We have people extremely excited and we have people extremely worried, and we have to navigate all these options. You see in this slide that teachers are taking different roles. And I think this diversity, one, is important, and two, is necessary, because we have to listen how different people are adopting. I believe that more than adoption, it's a process of what I call domestication of technology, which is, there's a lot of tension in this domestication. So I think it's important to highlight that AI is an umbrella term, it's a multi-purpose technology, and within AI, we've been focusing on generative artificial intelligence, which is this capacity of these machines of creating contents, information, videos, resources with a sophistication that mimics human intelligence, but also is becoming on a daily basis more transformative, more ubiquitous, meaning that we are less aware where they are, and at the same time, more undetectable, which really entails some challenges for us in education. Let me give you an example that is shared by Harari. Harari said that an average person is capable of reading 250 words per minute, right? So a specialized person on reading, for instance, a security analyst, in his or her entire life will be able to read during 40 years nonstop 2.6 billions of words, 2.6. And that amount of text can be read by one of these machines like GPT or others, LLMs, in just a couple of hours. So you might wonder, do we need to keep reading? And I think that is one of the core discussions in terms of what are the fundamental capacities that we want to integrate in education, despite, and this is an important word, despite that machines can do it. So we see a lot of opportunities in terms of tools for helping teachers, tools for guiding students, tools for producing contents. But at the same time, I think it's really important to have over the table the challenges and the tensions that each one of those technologies bring over the table. I'm sure you are aware of these discussions. I don't need to repeat them, but I think having these two balances, and my invitation is to use this as a potential framework for analysis. This is published in the Nature magazine, and they invite us to separate between the challenges, the need, and the opportunities. To have a balanced approach, as you mentioned a moment ago, and to think at least in three stakeholders: students, teachers, and administrators. When you move away from the promises and you understand the challenges and the needs, we can have a much more grounded discussion. So for instance, if we have a look at how this technology can help can help teachers, we know that we can put in the tool in the hands of the teachers, tools for creating knowledge, for designing lesson plans, for auto-grading, many opportunities. And we can deep dive in each one of those, which are the ones that you consider more relevant and more critical to prioritize. On the student, the same story. The students have now a Swiss army to do so many things at the same time, with a strong emphasis today in the literature in personalization. And my question is, let's be sure that personalization doesn't go against collaboration and learning with others. And the third one is with administrators. we can facilitate the work of administrators, automating some routine tasks in so many ways. So this is a very complex map of opportunities. But despite that we have imperfect information today for taking decisions, we know that these machines lead us to take decisions in automatic. What does it mean? That in many cases, we see based on the evidence that we have a cognitive offload. We rely on these machines, or we over-rely on these machines, and we allow these algorithms to take decisions on our behalf. And that is something that I think we have to be very careful, because it's not with or without machine, but it's with or without criteria and agency to take the last decision. So here in the right-hand side, you will find a number of meta-studies that are showing us that there are potentials in improving academic performance, but at the same time, in many cases, we see the more we use it, the more cognitive offload or mental effort is generated. And this is something that we don't like in education, because in education, we like to train the brain, to train the criteria, to train the common sense. So one tension that is in the literature is the trade-off between automation and augmentation. So automation is to allow the machine to do things for us, and augmentation is to enhance capacities. It's not quite the same. It's much easier to go in the automation, because we allow the system to translate for us, for instance, or to go to deep research and to do the research for us. But the interesting part for us, I believe, is on the augmentation, and I'm going to stop here a second. So if we take, for instance, any professional, it could be teachers or could be others, and we cross these two axes, the human-centric and the AI-centric, we can have some activities, and let me underscore, some activities that we can automate, and we can have some activities that we don't want to automate because we consider human-led or human-critical. In education, we have a lot of those. And there is an intersection in between on capacities that we can augment, right? But this requires a deep reflection on what tasks, what activities, in what context we want to automate, augment, or we want to keep as human-led. The second thing that I think is essential here is to understand that not all uses of AI go under the same criteria. We can have low cognitive contribution or high cognitive contribution. We can have low AI contribution or high AI contribution. If we have low of both, we have error. If the machine does the work for us, we have risk of integrity and plagiarism. The interesting part is on the top of it. Let me do a zoom here. So if we have either low or high AI contribution, but high cognitive contribution, then we land into a much more interesting landscape. We can use it for simplified activities like summarize or translate, but the one that we really should emphasize, I believe, is to move away from the over-reliance and challenge the output of this system. Be sure that this information might not be complete or might need to be contextualized. So this is the part that I believe we should put an emphasis. Another element that I think is essential, and the evidence is showing it to us, is we are moving from cognitive tasks only to much more personal and social-emotional interactions with these systems. The more we use them, the more people are trusting personal decisions like organizing my life or finding purpose. So I think this is important to underscore. Here we have an example of apps that are being used to provide social-emotional support to students in different parts of the world. Now, I believe that we have machines that in some cases overpass our capacity for taking decisions. And we have to completely rethink what are the gaps that this is generating. Some of you probably saw the Zurich University did a very controversial study on putting some bots on some forums and making those bots, people change their perceptions. The bots from AI were very effective, but the problem is that the subjects who were part of those discussions didn't know that they were part of an experiment. So that brought a big controversy. But at the same time, it's showing us that these systems are remarkably persuasive. We have another study from the Common Sense that is showing that when kids are using these AI companions, in many cases, that can lead to a very problematic outputs. So they recommend, and I recommend to have a look at this study, no AI companions before 18 years old. I don't have more time to go in this, but this is something to keep into account. Before finishing, let me say that we have seen in the studies, people with limited AI literacy, they can move from either being afraid or being to provide a magical syncing of these machines like they would be doing all this sort of stuff, right? So we have to design capacities to balance in the middle, to develop a fluency that allows you to see the potential, but at the same time, the limitations. And this is going to be my last slide to be right on the 10 minutes. My invitation is to separate the AI literacy in 3 chapters. One is understand what we are doing today, understand that these systems are not magic. These systems are based on patterns, on uses of algorithms. The intelligence is not in the system, the intelligence is in the data. Number 2, learning how to use these tools. There's no more important activity than explore with them. Obviously, we're careful in some cases, but being able to try and explore. And number 3, keeping the common sense and the critical thinking at the core when we evaluate the outputs of these systems, because we know these systems are context blind and we need to have the final criteria. Alessandro, I'm going to stop here to be on time for discussions and conversations.
Thank you, Cristobal. I mean, it's what you were showing. It's a really high quality material and very, very interesting. For example, in your last slide, what in your representation about understanding and et cetera, it's really about the Bloom taxonomy, no? Which is something that, and this is something that probably I'm going to, let's say, analyze in a bit more details with you, Chris. I would like also to introduce now Fabio, that perhaps can already address a first question based on what has been presented and the topic that we have, we would like to zoom in today about the impact on students' learning. How using AI we can really impact its capacity to remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. So Fabio, would you like to start with the first question? And thanks again, Chris, for this appetizer. Very, very interesting.
Yes, happy to do that. And hello, everybody. Actually, it's let's say our role now is pretty difficult because we have a number of questions that emerged from our teachers, from our community, let's say. And Cristobal, keep in mind that, as Alessandro was mentioning before, we are talking about teachers from different disciplines, from different countries and different contexts. And but we managed, we think, to cluster the questions around a few issues. We are talking here about pedagogical use of AI in the classroom, in the workplace, and especially on impact on students. Of course, we have touched upon other issues because everything is connected. And in the next conversations that will come in the upcoming months, we're going to tackle other things that you're pointing at. But thank you for staying on the, let's say, on target. Now, the first, and also, I mean, I think a few concepts that you mentioned, the students' agency, teacher agency, and autonomy, and few tensions actually are already answering parts of the questions. But I would say the first question is the following: how do you ensure that the use? So put yourself in the shoes of an educator. How do you ensure that the use of AI does not alter students' critical thinking and the authenticity of their work? We know that, I mean, for many years, I would say decades, people working in technology for learning have followed this sacred graal of personalization and so on, but now it seems to have gone even too far. Now we're talking about how do we make sure that what we believe should happen in a person's head when that person is learning actually happens. Now, it seems like technology is getting so powerful that we risk to miss that. So, and I know it's a very difficult question, maybe it's too early to respond, but if there is a person that can respond to that, is you. So please.
Thank you, Fabio. I cannot respond the question. I can share my questions that I have regarding that challenge because I believe it's an essential. So this is a topic of passions. This is a topic that brings a lot of excitement, a lot of enthusiasm, but a lot of concerns. I tend to play with the idea that it produces hysteria at the same time euphoria, both of them, right? And I believe that this is something that has been amplified with AI, but it came in the pandemic, and the history of EdTech usually move in this Garner hype that there is at the beginning a lot of excitement, and at the same time the system incorporate these tools. That's why I mentioned the word of domestication, and then we filter some ideas that remain in the structure. We have seen hypes again and again in many, many times. And a few days ago, I was reading Larry Cuban, who one more time said, this is just another hype. As soon as teachers incorporate this into the education, it's not going to change anything. It will be adapted to the structures of the system. While others are saying, no, this is a game changer. Some people say this is the new fire, right? Regardless of the position you have, my role is not to persuade you, it's just to give you tools to reflect. Regardless of the position you have, I think we can agree that not all the cognitive capacities are at the same level. Alessandro was mentioning the taxonomy of Bloom's, right? That's why I mentioned low cognitive contribution and high cognitive contribution. If we don't have the essentials, if we don't have the foundings of the how to navigate knowledge, you will be in a weak position to use machines that are highly persuasive. So if you put me in a more dramatic way, I would say the critical thinking might not be necessarily be developed through AI. You have to develop that before. The best way of developing critical thinking probably is reading books. It's not using ChatGPT. When you are being prepared with the grounding capacities, you will be able to navigate and filter information with your criteria, with your experience, with your background and context. Now, all that sounds very good, but these systems are becoming increasingly sophisticated. So even the more mature thinkers can be fooled. So I believe this is an opportunity to re-educate ourselves, to make our eyes, our ears more sharp, but understand that we might not need to only use AI to create critical thinking and more capacities of selecting information that we can trust.
Thank you. Before giving the floor to Alessandro for the second question, I will re-quote you what I wrote in the chat. The best way to develop critical thinking might be reading books, not using ChatGPT. And this is, I think, already in the conclusions of this webinar, because it's about what you do first and what you do after, because things at the end of the day are rather connected. Thanks a lot for escaping in a very elegant way from this impossible question. And Alessandro, please.
Yes. I would go really back to the students' learning experience. I'm now, since the beginning of April, in a school, and every students are using a computer. Every students have ChatGPT open, and they're really, let's say, using massively. I have to say, this is the reality. So I know that you are really keeping an overview on the research, on the progress. So in your mind, do you have some really new research on cognitive science that really highlight the AI impact on some specific elements of the Bloom taxonomy? If there are some research in this respect, because really it seems that we lack. It's true that, as you said, it's a matter of data. And here, for example, in this school in Helsinki, they are developing their own AI system, local, training the system with the aim to train the system with their local students, skills, intelligence, etc., etc. But so do we have some research that says, yes, for students, it's very good to use artificial intelligence on remembering? And this is, so if you, it happens to have a specific reference, if possible, to one research. And because, Chris, we actually learn in very different way. Every one of us, you, myself, all of us in the meetup learn in different way. How we could really use AI to tailor to my learning in a way that I can better understand, apply, etc., etc.
Super. I think it's $1 million question, Alessandro,
Again.
and I'm happy that you are bringing. Few days ago, Sam Altman said in this TED Talk conversation with Chris Anderson, he said that nearly 800 million people were using OpenAI ChatGPT, which is 10% of the planet, by the way. 10% of the planet are using that technology. So when I listened to that, I was, from the research perspective, I was like, how on earth, if we have one person every 10 in the planet using this technology, why we don't have more and better evidence? Why we don't have a river of new productions in terms of giving us hints how this information, how these tools, how these platforms are transforming education, either for good or for bad. And I'm sorry to say that despite that I've been investing a significant amount of time trying to find evidence, I believe that this is still very early, it's very fragmented, and it's not conducive of high-level conclusions. I think we find more evidence on math, for instance, than on reading and literacy. I think we find evidence that in very well-off environments, these tools can be very impactful. Well-off environments, I mean, for instance, elite settings like Harvard, these chatbots can really not only enhance the learning. In some universities, we see that it increases the retention of the students, right? So these sort of things are very good for those settings. But I also, because of my work and my interests, I wonder how this thing can impact those who are not going to Harvard, those who don't have all the conditions in place. And I have to say that in low resource settings, I've seen this being very useful for supporting teachers, meaning chatbots or tutors for teachers, helping them to clarify some hints, some pedagogical guidance, and I think that is very relevant. Now, despite this 10% globally, I believe that one of the concerns I have, and this is very personal, is we are sending mixed messages here for teachers. On the one side, let's get the mobiles out of the classroom, but at the same time, AI is very important. These things should not be used in classes, should not be used for essays, but teachers can use it for grading. So we have a very mixed picture here that is probably leading to some level of confusion. So I'm not blaming anyone, but I want to celebrate these kind of discussions that you are opening today, because discussing the questions we have, providing guidance, some principles that obviously needs to be revised on a regular basis because this is changing a lot, is going to be really important for all of us to develop criteria in a changing landscape.
Thank you. And well, I'll pass immediately the floor to Fabio because we have just 10 minutes. And so I would like to address another question after you, Fabio.
Yeah, well, actually, let me improvise and take a question from the chat, actually, because the other questions will find a way to address them to you. We have at the moment, Jihad from Palestine, by the way, good to meet you here, Jihad, has a question about ethics, which will be tackled in an upcoming conversation. So you might say something on ethics if you want, but I would like to focus on this question by Aizulu, who is also an ambassador of our community of innovative educator. She asks, from history, we know about the winter in the development of AI in the late 70s. Is it possible that people will become disillusioned with AI and pass this hype as well, and the second winter in the development of AI will come? You were pointing to that before, but I think, at least to me, it's not clear where we are in the curve. I keep on reading, but if you ask me the question, I wouldn't bet a dime on that. So do you think that this might come or not? What's your take?
Wonderful. So on ethics, the question that I think is useful to ask ourselves is who is being left behind? And that has so many implications. For instance, if you are using an LLM or any of these chatbots, and you think in some languages, which probably are being trained in minority language, are being trained less of these systems, it's quite likely that the information provided by that culture will be diminished. people tend to joke and say that there's probably more notes in Wikipedia about Darth Vader than any specific scientific bit, because the overrepresentation of some reality. So who is being left behind is something that we should keep as a systematic question before using it, while we use it, and to analyze the outputs. And the other question that I think is essential is, we know that education is not transactional, it's relational. And if we underscore the value of one-to-one between human and chatbots, let's be sure that this doesn't go against humans learning from humans. This is something that really keeps me awake, because I believe it's so much easier to talk to the chatbot questions than ask to the teacher or a colleague. So let's be sure that the enthusiasm about this technology doesn't hinder the real core of education, which is a human connection. And in terms of the hype, I have no doubt that this will go through some process of excitement, adoption, and reduction, and then in 24 months, we are going to laugh of the excitement about, could be 24 months or 24 years, but it's going to happen, right? I don't know exactly the time. We're going to laugh of the excitement because there will be another trend that will be evolved. And I don't think that is bad. That keeps us awake. That keeps us asking questions. But it's good to keep some step behind of distance and perspective to be sure that we take what is relevant, but we don't sacrifice what we think is essential. So I think the hype is something that is probably going to happen as a global trend, but also within our communities, in our school, in our district. Probably we will have early adopters which are super excited. We will have people who are extremely rejecting that, and we will navigate in the middle of that. So let's be sure that in those processes, no one is left behind. And two, the diversity of perspective is essential to navigate these changes of uncertainty.
Thank you, Chris. I would like to address another question. We have plenty of questions that we could discuss with you, but just a matter of time that is running. But one of the questions we received in March that I would like to address you. But before passing to the question, there was an interesting article that I read recently where they were saying, let's start to treating AI as a normal technology, as a first step. And this we might have more balanced approaches in this respect, because otherwise we create too many expectations, and on the other hand, people that are really negative and so it's a bit linked to what you were replying. But one of the questions we received was about if it's possible, and based on your understanding, Chris, what we should expect in the long term, the impact of AI in education. So if we think you are liaising with policymakers, so what should they do to have properly in place the education, and the AI is correctly and ethically on board?
Super. You know something funny, Alessandro? Yesterday in the afternoon, I was with the authors of this paper on normal technology, because they were launching the previous book, which is called AI Snake Oil, which I highly recommend. And they were, this article will lead to a new book. So I think we will have to be very careful and attentive of that opportunity. Something that keeps me awake is many teachers are struggling with trying to chase when students are using these technologies dishonestly. And some are saying, well, I didn't study to be an educator, just to be a police. And I believe that this is an essential aspect that we have to tackle. How we transform this as a tool that can add value to the pedagogy, and not only as a risk of integrity. So I think there is a big discussion that we are not going to have enough time to discuss it now, but why don't we see what elements of pedagogy can be revisited? So that means let's focus on the output and more focus on the process. Let's focus on the essay that the student will produce, and more what was the chain of thought that he or she followed to build something, right? So these are the key discussions that I think we can have in the months to come, to stay away from the police versus thief that sometimes I see. Now, just to finish on the what do we want to see, what we would like to see in the future, and what kind of impacts, I like to organize this in three elements. One is governance. I do believe that regulators need to provide a clear rules of the game, what is expected, when to use this technology, what is not good idea, and what kind of system support are in place. Let's not leave the teachers alone to sort out all these problems. Number two, infrastructure. Infrastructure means so many things. It means access to connectivity devices, but also means data infrastructure. Let's be sure that these systems are being used and trained with local data that we can enhance and enrich in terms of protection and in terms of relevance and contextual value. I think infrastructure is something that is not trivial because more and more technologies are coming. Governments and education systems cannot buy all the technology, so you have to take some priorities, but infrastructure is going to be a big challenge in terms of new digital divides. And the third one is capacities. Capacities at all levels. Capacities for our students who learn to do not overtrust these systems. Capacities for teachers to know these technologies and being able to select when and how. Capacities for the decision makers who also need to understand the basic and understand where support might be needed. So governance, infrastructure, and capacity, I do believe is the future that I want to see in this transformative landscape.
Chris, thank you very much. And I have to say, I'm still referring to my resident research here in Helsinki, where these three elements, I see them very clearly established. Okay, there is the EU Act, an umbrella regulatory framework, but there are very simple and quite clear national guidelines about the governance, about the principles, and this is really helping the college, I'm pretty sure. I work in a context where the infrastructure is fantastic. I know that this is not in all, for example, ETF PANE countries, but this is super important. You do not realize that you are connected, but wherever you are, you can connect access to the system. And in terms of inclusion, that was another remark, is a super. So, and the capacity. Indeed, the teachers are quite, of course, there are pioneers like Matti that is going to speak, and other teachers that are more prudent, but all teachers have the opportunity to have a licensed version of the tool. And they must have, let's say, a driving license for this. So these are three elements that you mentioned for a long-term impact of AI are definitely something that I realize here is happening. There are also questions, Chris, from maybe we have time for a quick answer from your side. Fabio, you would like to?
I mean, I think I suggest, I mean, given the number of questions and especially the quality of the questions, I think these questions would deserve actually a PhD research each. I think we should maybe steal some time from the open discussion. Actually, we are having it now, and maybe I think if I can, I could merge two or three questions that are there because actually they are leaning a lot towards the inclusion aspect that Cristobal, you are rightly, let's say, focusing on. But I think, let's say, a few questions are talking about informal and non-formal learning, because as long as we are on formal learning, we have rules, regulations, and so on. But when we move into, for example, the Duolingo case that Justina is putting there we are in a world where companies, I mean Duolingo, learning providers, can decide, for example, to go AI first. So to change really to bet on a new system. And this is happening. I mean, we have seen there are a few colleges in the UK that are also experimenting with courses with a very strong AI component. So this is no more potential impact. This is really a real thing. I mean, imagine a Duolingo with the big numbers they have. This could have a great impact on the way people perceive this, no, on your scale before. So my question is, in terms of, again, impact on learners' cognitive capacities and also of inclusion, because I think there is also a very good question by Luzine on the issue of inclusion and how we can, I mean, that should be who is left behind should be actually the driving question. I agree. How will these AI first experiments, if they are experiments, contribute or drive the thing? Because these things are actually more and more on the news. They are there. So we're no more talking about possible things. They're really there. So can you comment on this this development?
Absolutely. Well, such an important question. One of the big difference between this technology and previous ed tech, if you want, is in many, many cases, previous ed tech tend to come to the education system top down, where Ministry of Education did agreement with big corporations that they bought licenses and then start providing a cascade training program, and that was deployed over the education system. This case was completely different, was just bottom up. I mean, people came with this in their pockets, and that brought a lot of tension. And as you might remember, the first reaction was to ban all these tools, and then people who were banning then recalculate. But that means that the curve of adoption was much faster. Doesn't mean that it was better, but it was faster, right? So now we encounter education systems that are trying to catch up with this technology that is all over the place and is evolving almost on a weekly basis. Those who are tracking these topics and fields is really hard to be updated. Now, when we see how technology has been integrated into education beyond AI, in many cases, we see that it's not very easy to fit a good technology in 45 minutes lesson, right? Because you have to connect the system, you have to put the students, and the 40 minutes run like that, and you haven't probably been able to integrate that in a suitable way. But a completely different game is with that technology goes beyond those 45 or 60 minutes of class, and you have the possibility on your own time to do exploration, to go deeper and explore the things that you like. And I believe, based on that we should better combine formal and informal learning in order to allow explorations that should go beyond the classroom. Because in the classroom, it's not enough. Many of the companies that today are offering adaptive tutoring, for instance, for learning math, they recommend that the students per week needs to be exposed at least 25 minutes of practice. Some more, some less, but around 20, 30 minutes is what they recommend to have some systematic use, right? But this is within the formal structure. When we go beyond that, think in the amount of time that some of you are investing to use these bots within formal education and beyond formal education. That's completely external. So what I believe is we have to find ways of providing guidance, tools, support for connecting the formal and the informal learning in a way that is more natural and is not restricted to the time frame that teachers sometimes struggle because of very, very heavily loaded curriculums and content that they need to cover.
Thank you so much, Chris, also for this answer. I'm afraid that we need to switch to the next speaker. I hope very much, Chris, you will be with the club other times because it's a really interesting and a good way really to go deeper, engaging with the participants and to really have a good understanding. So, Chris, I hope very much we will have you with us other times. So let's close now this part and thanking Chris, we move to the next speaker of today. And I'm very glad to introduce Matti Seise. He's a teacher. Hello, Matti.
Hello.
Is a teacher and a special education instructor at the Business College of Helsinki, from where I'm talking today. Matti is responsible for the Justanova. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this in Finnish properly.
Yeah, flexible program. Yeah.
Flexible learning program, yes. And the program that Matti is going to introduce briefly today is designed for students pursuing a vocational qualification in software development in ICT who benefit from individualized learning path and schedule. And Matti is emphasizing blended and experimental learning methodology. I saw applied in his classroom, flipped classroom, and choir-based approach, supported by the use of generative AI systems such as ChatGPT. And basically, Matti is in this classroom that has a flexible setting, let's say. It's not standard with a desk for students. They have sofa, they can sit alone in a different context. Even outside the classroom, there are tables, they can decide to stay outside. So it's everything very, very flexible. And this is a kind of experimental learning methodology. So, Matti, I would not go, I observe a lot of things while you were, let's say, delivering your lesson, but I would pass to you, Matti, and would be very interesting to see what you use, how you use, and highlight perhaps challenges in what you do. And I hope from the audience you might have hints, suggestions, and please, the audience again, reflect also on how you could apply this very effective, or I would say at least innovative approach in your classroom.
Thanks.
Okay,
Yes.
Matti, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Okay, can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So let's start. Okay, so hello, my name is Matti Seise, and I'm a vocational special education teacher from Business College Helsinki. My background is in computer science. I have studied computer science for 5 years, and I have specialized in software systems. I was graduated in 2010. And since then, I have been a teacher, and I have been a special education teacher since 2015. I have been working with the artificial intelligence and supportive intelligence since November 2022, when the ChatGPT came out. And when the ChatGPT came out, I quite rapidly realized that I can create some teaching material with the ChatGPT, because I'm teaching computer science, programming, how to develop websites, how to teach cybersecurity, and so on. And we don't have any textbooks because the textbooks are getting old quite fast. So if I buy a book now, it's too old tomorrow. So I cannot use those. So I have constantly to create my own material. So the ChatGPT was a godsend in that way. When I realized that I can use the ChatGPT on creating a material, so it was I made a YouTube video about it, and I participated to a competition of artificial intelligence to support learning, which was held by Technology Industries of Finland. And I actually won it because it was quite innovative in that time. So since then, I have been using AI on teaching. But as I said, I'm a special education teacher as well as a computer science teacher. So I realized that I can use the AI with the special needs as well. So a new kind of supportive measure, AI-assisted learning. So as far as I know, I'm one of the rare people here in Finland who are using this in this extent, at least in here. So, okay, apparently my slides have been broken, but it's addressing linguistic challenges and supporting reading comprehension. So I have 4 different approaches here. Second one is breaking down complex task packages, so getting things done into step-by-step instructions. Third one that I'm showing you is how to interpret content aloud. And last one is I'll show you how I tackled text formatting for an almost blind person. So the first one here is with the language barrier. So I have students all over the world in my classroom, or my teaching language is Finnish, and also because the field of my expertise is in English, I use English as well. But in this case, a student came to me and her native language was Arabic. And we didn't have a too good common ground with her to speak. So her spoken Finnish was very good, but reading comprehension was or is quite limited. And as I said, almost all of my material are written in Finnish and some are in English. But the girl came to me sent by other teachers, and the other teachers said that she has some really hard learning difficulties because she is not learning. This is some basic stuff, how to create a website by HTML and CSS. So really elementary stuff in our field. So she was having a problem with that, and I sat down with the girl and I tried to explain how to use tags and what are tags and what are the parts of the coding, and she didn't get it. And I was really trying to pinpoint what was the hard part for her to understand, and I couldn't actually get the point what was the hard. And then I realized that the problem was on understanding what I was saying or what was reading on the screen. So I took the material and I chose to use ChatGPT, and I'll take this is my example exercise, and told to ChatGPT that translate this to Arabic. And suddenly it managed to do it really well, but the problem continued because she said that, okay, Matti, now I can understand this, but there is a slight problem. This is standard Arabic, and I'm from Iraq, so there is a dialect difference. And then I just tried that. Can I do this? Translate this with Iraq dialects, and it managed to do this. And after that, she got hang into studies. And instead of graduating in 4 years, what was the plan? She managed to graduate. Oh, she's graduating within a month, within 2 weeks. So she managed to graduate in 2 years instead of 4. So this was the first example. Next one is how to fragmentation of task packages. So quite commonly used support method is breaking down the tasks. By that I mean step-by-step instructions. The process is very laborious and time-consuming, and that leads that it's left often incomplete or undone totally. So people are not doing this because we don't have time to create step-by-step instructions for every people in our classroom. For example, I have 60 students in my classroom, even though most of them are learning remotely, but still I have 60 people. So I realized that if I create a custom ChatGPT model, not model, but the tool, ChatGPT tool, I can create a thing that breaks the task in the step-by-step instructions. And I'll show it to you here. I have done it step-by-step instructor. And this is the same exercise, story mode exercise. My students are usually loving these story mode exercises where the exercise is told in a way of a story. But I have some students that really cannot get hold what he or she is supposed to do here. So I created this step-by-step instructor. And what this does is, first it tells what the student is supposed to learn. It tells the assignment, what this is all about. And then finally, it gives step-by-step instructions okay, first you have to understand the main character and settings. Action, do this. So first you have to do this step 1. Then once you have done step 1, go to step 2. Then go to step 3 and so on. So he or she can get the step-by-step instructions and finally get the answer. So this helped a lot of most of my students. Almost all of my students are using this at the moment. But interesting thing that happened later was one of my students told me that, Matti, I have used this tool of yours in a totally different thing. In her personal life, she moved on his own place in her own house, and she needed to open a bank account from S-Bank. So she told to my model that I'm not sure how to open a bank account. So she used this tool that I made for learning into a real life exercise. So once she put the instructions there, so telling that I don't know how to do this, she get the same step-by-step instructions here. So first, that you need to know that you have to be a legal resident in Finland. You have to got your ID with you. You have to decide whether you want to apply online or in person to the bank. You have to check where to get this schedule, where you can get into a bank, and finally how to do it. So this was helping her a lot. So this is a really nice part that AI can do. So they can use the models you are building in a totally different way that you have originally thought that they will be used. So the next one is I have is accessible documents with the help of artificial intelligence. As I said, I have a almost blind student. His visual disability is 90%, so he can see only 10% of the 10% amount as we other can see. So most of his tools are not capable to see different kind of file formats, for example, PDF files, Excel files, PowerPoint files, or so on, because they are not usually using any kind of a written text, especially PDFs, which has been scanned from an image. So with him, we realized that we can finally see what things are inside of a PowerPoint document or Excel document or those scanned PDFs by using Edge browser. On Edge browser, we have this Copilot built in here. So we can ask a summary about, for example, I have been teaching web coding. So can you create a summary? So it creates a summary, and on his computer, he can press a microphone where he can speak to system, and he can also highlight the text and right click and listen to text as well. So he can use the PDF files or PowerPoints or Excel files by voice, which is a really groundbreaking to him because he cannot see. So he can see something that he hasn't ever before been able to see. So it's helping in his normal routines. And last one. So the same guy is having a problem. As I said, he can see only 10% from what we can see. So he cannot read large text files or wall of text, big text files, and he needs to put it in a short sentences, short lines, and high contrast. But unfortunately, high contrast is something that AI cannot do yet, but AI can split the text in a short prose. So here is an example, the same exercise, same text, and this ChatGPT model I'm building is making the lines to be up to 40 characters long and splitting in up to 5 lines long chapters so he can read it. So this is a new kind of use for large language models, which wasn't be able to do before unless we have coded a lot in some kind of specific program. But now we don't need to do this programming anymore because we have these large language models. And that was my last slide. So thank you for this. And now it's time for the questions, I guess.
Yes, I mean, Roberto, whenever you want to get in the discussion of Fabio, I'm just taking first the word because I know Matti, and I wanted to thanks for his presentation, providing practical, concrete utilization of ChatGPT with his students. And he mentioned that he's leading and liaising with 60 students, 60.
Yes, correct.
So this is in a hybrid context because some special students are not in a position to go easily to school. So this is happening also remotely. Of course, behind that, there is a great infrastructure, a learning management system that works, that observe. But I would have a quick question, and one from Heidia from the chat as well. My question is for the use case number 2, no, about improving, so reducing the barriers to get to become a software developer. No, sometimes the problem is too complex. I needed to unpack and in order to understand what I have to solve, little problem by little problem. And you mentioned that you developed a customized version of ChatGPT.
Yeah, correct.
I hope this is clear to all audience because this is an important aspect. Because I don't know if you noticed, but Matti was introducing the problem, but ChatGPT was not providing the solution. Of course, he could do this, provide a fantastic code. But can you perhaps highlight this aspect, Matti? And this is from my side. And I already introduced a kind of provocative question about the first use case. So, okay, you are facilitating using the dialect, etc., etc. But this might raise a problem, say, Adia. Say the students become very lazy. The person from Iraq can understand the standard Arabic. On the other side, determining the steps is a kind of learning. But okay, this is the idea that in the end, we become a bit addicted and lazy. What is your answer?
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure if it's actually a problem. Because it's a feature more than a problem, because especially with languages, we are getting into point where there is all the AI tools we can use are helping with translating stuff in a real time. So the most important thing we need to learn is not a foreign language anymore, because it's more like your native language. So you have a power of vocabulary to say what you want, what you actually mean. It means much more than the words you can say in some foreign language. So I see that this is the way we are heading at the moment. Did that answer?
Yeah. And there was also my question related to the customized version of ChatGPT. Yep. What you need to do this customized version in practical terms? If another teacher that now is here and want to use in a similar way to provide methods, but not solutions. What they have to do?
Okay, I'll show it. I'll show it to you. So Okay, so here's my screen. So I have been using this step-by-step ChatGPT mode here. I have done
These
this.
are all what we see on the left are all your customized ChatGPT.
Customers ChatGPTs, yeah. I have a paid account. You need to be using paid account to create these custom GPTs, but you can share them with anyone. You can use my GPT if you want to, after I have done it. So I create a new GPT here. Unfortunately, this is in Finnish, but here is my own GPTs, and I create a GPT. And once I have done the GPT, the model, it looks something like this. So here are the instructions, what I have told the GPT how it should work. And I have said that use plain language and short sentences, don't give any actual answers, and so on. So here are all the specific instructions to my GPT model. And this is where I can forbid the system to give the right answers. Sometimes it actually gives the right answer, but my students have promised that when it fails, they won't use it. So we have a kind of a honorable agreement with the students. But it's here where you are giving the instructions, and you can give some kind of starting points here. I want to use this in English. I want to use this in Finnish and also in Italian, I guess. I hope this is an Italian. It should be. So this is where you do.
So basically, this is basically you need first of all a licensed ChatGPT.
Yeah, that's correct.
And this is and then you can create as many as you want customized version.
Yeah,
and
for all your needs. Yeah.
Perfect. And what you do is to use the human natural language to say what kind of answer to provide to my prompt. And the students can use this customized version even with a free license.
That's correct. And they can use the free license. And actually, I will share it to you if you want to use this. Here is the instructions, and you can create your own. I will link it to chat. So in case you want to use it, you can. Here is the link to GPT model. If you want to use it, if you want to check what I have told the model, you can read it here, and you can copy and make it to your own. So I will link chat once I figure out how I do that.
Okay, thank you. I don't know whether Roberto, Fabio, or anybody else of the content leaders would like to add something.
No, one question related to one of the aspects that we are often going through when we talk about innovation in schools or innovation in training centers and so on. So the question would be, how many other colleagues of you apply the same approach, the same methodologies regarding artificial intelligence? Because we realize that sometimes, especially in formal schools, we have one or two innovative teachers with innovative methods, but he's not or she is not really supported by the most of the colleagues. So we were wondering if there are others like you, because you are showing a very important use of artificial intelligence, ChatGPT.
Thank you. I have quite many colleagues that are using AI. All of our teachers are getting the license either to Copilot or ChatGPT from the school. So we all can use the ChatGPT or Copilot or even Claude or whatever AI model we want to use. We are getting from the school. School is paying to teachers. So we are encouraged to use the AI models by the staff, or I mean by the government of school, our school. So if I would have to give some number, I would say about 50% of my colleagues are using AI in some way.
Wow.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
And as I was mentioning, the college is offering to all teachers here either a paid license by the school they can decide whether to use a ChatGPT or Copilot. And so they provided the means to do all this. In the meantime, Matti has shared a document on how, with the instruction to create your own customized ChatGPT. Please remember, I added that this is necessary a licensed version to do so.
And
Okay.
if we can channel, there is a very technical question by Ilgar to Matti. Do you use variables in your prompts? I don't know what this means.
No, at the moment I don't. Actually, I haven't tried those out yet, so I don't use variables on those. Just plain instructions. I have actually optimized the instructions on the OpenAI's Playground. There is a tool where you can optimize your prompts. So I have optimized it on the Playground area. At least they are claiming that it's optimizing for the model.
Thank you. Thank you. Consider that every time I engage in discussions with Ilgar, it gets too technical for me in 30 seconds. So thank you. Otherwise,
Yeah.
even more excluded. No, but I think, if Alessandro, if I may, one thing we forgot to say is that in our club we have, apart from the team in the ETF, and we have here with us Olena, Alessandro, myself, Alice, who is leading another new learning club on teacher professional development. We are relying on a team of content leaders. We have here a couple of them with us, Sahin from Turkey and Tatiana from Ukraine, who are actually teachers, experts, researchers, the typical members of our community who actually have a specific interest in pushing the agenda forward. So we are getting close to the end, and so I would like to ask, as everybody, of course, to keep on asking questions, but especially Tatiana, Sahin, and also Cristobal, why not, if you want to come back with the question to Matti. I think, Matti, for me, the most extraordinary thing is not so much what you are doing, which is actually quite impressive, but is the fact that you claim, and of course I believe it, that 50% of your fellow teachers are doing something more or less similar. I mean, you have a computer science background.
Yeah, not this complex, but using in a way or another. Yeah.
To me, 50% is a shocking figure, because it's at least in the schools, and every time we ask this question, the number is really much lower. So very interesting. And I wonder how much this push you get from the top, I mean, the fact that you can get access to the license is actually, of course, it is a condition in many cases, but it's not maybe it's not the only thing. There must be also something else, some sort of, I don't know, peer pressure or peer copying. I don't know what's the magic there, but it will be something very interesting. And I don't know, but I would like to leave the floor now to Tatiana, Sahin, or Cristobal, or other colleagues. I see we are still around 50 people, and with many brains around. So thank you, Matti. And
Thank you.
Tatiana, you have unmuted yourself.
Okay.
Yeah, please.
I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Very well.
Yeah, okay. First of all, thank you so much for our respective speakers, because today, again, you brought one of you more theoretical and observative and conclusive information, the other more practical, and this is very, very helpful for all our community members. While preparing, and you may be not aware, but we have created in the community the guide for teachers. And in that guide, there was a 6 steps instructions how to meet the challenges. And while preparing, like pedagogical challenges with AI, and while preparing for one of my speeches, I was thinking about these pedagogical challenges. And today, listening to Matti, I just analyzed that with his example, he showcased that during these simple examples, he met a lot of pedagogical challenges among them. So it was AI for student engagement, right? So students were better engaged. It was AI for special education support and speech to text, text to speech, and other assistive technologies. It was also AI with teacher workload reduction, because to create this instruction, steps by steps instruction, it takes time, right? And AI has to reduce this teacher workload. Early intervention, yeah, because detecting learning difficulties of the student and to how to meet these difficulties with AI, it helped a lot. Language barriers, right? Personalized learning. So all these examples of ordinary pedagogically challenges we usually meet in the classroom because of the variety of students, variety of their needs, etc. So this is a perfect example. And I also think, Matty, you may be using AI for assessment and feedback, right? And adaptive testing. So because you haven't mentioned it, but it is also the opportunity for further expansion of your AI usage methods, like testing and assessment.
I just had to pick some highlights, so I couldn't show them all, of course, because I had only 15 minutes.
Yeah, sure. But I'm pretty sure, but you, because of limited time. But actually, my call is for our participants, the communities, because I see that you and because of this multiple watches of the video recording, which we do after the meetups, and you do watch. So it means that you're absorbing the knowledge from our community like sponge, and this is good. But I think the community is also the give and get, right? Not only getting, but also giving something. And therefore, my call for action would be maybe to share some your practices, which will be very, very useful for the community, even if you are not pioneering, like, something like innovation. Maybe you are only starting casual experimenting, but in this experimenting, you also meet some challenges or some aha or insights which you may share, so that we may together collaboratively thinking on how to better meet these challenges and how to integrate your ahas, not to overcome ourselves and not to repeat them. Therefore, I will give the floor to Sahin, and he will provide again and pay attention how you may submit your best practices, how you may submit the information about the resources you use, so that collaboratively we will analyze, systematize, and prepare them for better value of our community. Sahin?
Thank you, Tatiana. Thank you. I'm so grateful that we have hosted two important speakers, Cristobal and Matti. So we have gained and more theoretical and practical issues within the use of AI in educational settings. Actually, I would like to give a brief summary about our guide that we have developed. So it is the major goal is to promote AI literacy among educators and students, encouraging responsible, explainable, and inclusive AI use. So it is a 6-step roadmap, as you have mentioned about some challenge. So we fixed as a first step identifying educational challenge. The second is designing AI-based solution, and the third one understanding AI limitation and opportunities. And the fourth one assessing institutional and teacher readiness. And the fifth, planning implementation, and finally evaluating impact. So actually, recently we have been talking about the use of AI and the potential opportunities of AI, using AI in educational settings. So what about the challenge today? We have gained a more practical information about the use of AI and how we get some solutions while facing those challenges. So Roberto and I have been shared the links and the guidelines we have developed. You can see on the page of 15. You can share your practical your practices and resources, and we will be able to analyze them. And the next meetups we are planning to share best practices to be used in educational settings. Thank you for all for this kind of very useful and crucial webinar.
Okay, thank you, Sahina. I think, Fabio, we are almost done for today. Of course, we had this is the new format of the club teaching with AI. So it's a format where we have a lot of informal conversation, but with a super good international expert like Cristobal today.
I'm tempted to adopt a flip the webinar approach and to ask our speakers to close the webinars instead of being us, because I think actually before I asked Cristobal to comment on Matti, but we didn't have Matti commenting on Cristobal, so we have still 4 minutes.
Okay, that is a good end.
I mean, of the interventions, if you would use this. Also asking them to provide, if they want some advice, to the community, because these people spend their lifetime using AI, reading about AI, so they might have also some suggestions for us as a group of people who are trying to understand something in this crazy world. So if you agree, Ale, you lead the club, but I think it would be cool to have this final moment.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I mean, I don't know if Chris is still here.
Yeah, he's still there.
Okay, Chris, so a quick telegraphic comment on Matti intervention and practice.
Excellent. Telegraphic. I think what Matti showed us is how we can put this into practice. This is technical, but also is pedagogical. And I think the balance that he offers is essential. We discussed at the very beginning this tension between automation and augmentation. We can automate some activities. The hints that he is giving us goes in that direction, but that can give us back one of the key elements, which is saving time for the elements that we consider critical. So the invitation is to be open to exploration, but at the same time, being careful with a technology that we don't fully understand, which entails opportunities, but at the same time, being attentive of what could be happening in the forthcoming future.
Wow, Chris, this is super interesting. Matti, I take note of all this. I think it's super, super relevant. Huh?
Of course, yeah.
And Matti, now it's your turn. What did you get from Chris?
It was really, really nice theoretical framework, and I liked how it was represented. So there was something that I will take to my lessons as well. So thank you.
So thank you. I mean, we take the two lenses, no? What we need really in terms of research, understanding, pedagogy, and into practice. So there is a Tatiana that you might close at this moment the event, but before closing, just a recap. We put in the chat the link to the guidelines. Matti, Chris, if you want to have a look, what we are going to do is to continue the development of this guideline this year, including the question and the answer. The most important might be in different format because it's an interactive online guidelines. We would like to put some of the questions discussed today and put the answer underneath that we got during this, to me, very interesting discussion that we had today. And please keep on submitting your practices. This is the homework that we give to the participants, because you might be on the stage like Matti today and bring your contribution. Okay, I hope Matti will be also part of the club. You registered, so you remain in the loop, because we need the teachers like you with us. Tatiana, I would, Fabio, if you agree, Fabio, we'll let Tatiana close the event.
No.
So now it's your turn to close.
Yeah, And actually, it was one of the ideas for one of the next meetings, because we are most focusing on educational pedagogical issues within educational practices. But there are also extracurricular activities, and there may be how to engage students into solving and meeting sustainable development goals with AI, how to integrate AI for well-being, how to integrate AI for their self-development, etc. So it may be a good point for one of the next meetings, if you won't mind. And I would suggest a speaker for that from the UK.
Okay.
I think today it was interactive, very practical, very engaging, and hopefully all our participants got value from our meetup. Thank you for participation. Thank you for your speeches and for your presentations, for your great experience shared with all the participants. Thank you so much.
Goodbye.
Thank you very much. And thanks all the participants for
Grazie
their comments
Roberto,
and feedback.
grazie Marta.